Hey everyone, and welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into the decline of British influence in Africa. Britain, during its imperial peak, held sway over vast swathes of the African continent. But history, as we know, has a habit of taking unexpected turns. After World War II, British influence in Africa began to wane, leading to the independence of many African nations. So, what were the factors that contributed to this decline? It was a confluence of events, a perfect storm, if you will, from the rise of African nationalism to the economic realities of a post-war world and the shifting sands of Cold War politics. The reasons are complex and interconnected. Over the next few minutes, we'll unpack these factors, exploring how they reshaped the relationship between Britain and Africa. You can't talk about the decline of British influence in Africa without talking about the incredible force that was the African nationalist movement. Throughout the mid-20th century, a wave of nationalism surged across the continent. Imagine living under the rule of another country for decades, being told how to live, what to believe, even what language to speak. People began to yearn for self-determination, for the right to chart their own destinies. Across Africa, charismatic leaders like Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana and Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya emerged. These leaders, educated in Europe and exposed to Western ideals of self-governance, returned to Africa with a burning desire for change. They mobilized their people, organized protests, and challenged the very foundations of colonial rule. It was a message that resonated deeply, igniting a fire for independence that British could not extinguish. While African nations were finding their voice and demanding independence, Britain found itself grappling with a new reality after World War II. The war, while ending in victory for Britain and its allies, had come at a tremendous cost. The British economy was in shambles. The war effort had drained its resources, and rebuilding was a daunting task. Maintaining a vast empire, with its administrative costs and military presence, suddenly seemed like an unsustainable luxury. Britain had to prioritize, and maintaining its imperial grip on Africa was becoming increasingly untenable. Plus, Britain itself had undergone significant changes during the war. The conflict had spurred social and political shifts, leading to the rise of the welfare state and a greater emphasis on domestic issues. In this new environment, holding on to colonies became less about national pride and more about a pragmatic assessment of Britain's own capabilities and priorities. As if the rise of African nationalism and Britain's post-war struggles weren't enough, the world decided to throw in another curveball: the Cold War. Suddenly, the fight wasn't just about land and resources. It was about ideology, about global dominance between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both sides saw an opportunity in the crumbling edifice of European colonialism. Africa, with its newly independent nations and vast resources, became a key battleground in this ideological struggle. The US, promoting democracy and capitalism, saw a chance to curb the spread of Soviet influence. The Soviets, for their part, championed anti-imperialist struggles, portraying themselves as allies to newly liberated nations. This Cold War rivalry, while fraught with its own dangers, inadvertently provided African nations with more leverage. Here's the thing about empires: they might rule by force, but they also rule through ideas. And in the case of British colonialism, one of its unintended consequences was the emergence of a new generation of educated Africans. Over decades of colonial rule, the British had established schools and universities, albeit often with the aim of creating a class of Africans who could serve their administration. But these institutions, meant to instill loyalty and obedience, ended up fostering critical thinking and a thirst for knowledge that went far beyond the colonial curriculum. African students, exposed to Western political thought, literature, and history, began to question the very foundations of colonial rule. This burgeoning educated class, armed with their newfound knowledge and fueled by the spirit of nationalism, became a powerful force for change. They wrote, they debated, they organized, and they challenged the status quo at every turn. These weren't just students, they were future lawyers, doctors, journalists, and politicians, and they would go on to play a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of their nations. The final nail in the coffin of British influence, and indeed all forms of European colonialism, came from a rather unexpected source: the world itself. The post-war period wasn't just about geopolitical power struggles, it was also about a profound shift in global consciousness. The horrors of World War II forced humanity to confront the ugly reality of unchecked hatred and oppression. In this new world order, the old justifications for colonialism, the paternalistic notions of the white man's burden, simply didn't hold water anymore. Organizations like the newly formed United Nations championed the principles of self-determination and human rights, giving voice to the aspirations of colonized people worldwide. This international pressure, combined with all the other factors we've discussed, created an environment where the continuation of colonialism became increasingly untenable. The tide had turned, and the old empires were crumbling. So there you have it. The decline of British influence in Africa wasn't a single event, but a complex tapestry woven from threads of nationalism, economic realities, Cold War maneuvering, social change, and global shifts in consciousness. It's a story of resilience, of a people reclaiming their agency and shaping their own destiny. And while the legacy of colonialism continues to cast a long shadow, understanding this period of transformation is crucial to understanding the Africa of today. A continent brimming with challenges, yes, but also with immense potential. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel and like and share our videos. Don't forget to check out our other videos on important African topics.